that looks like this, and it has on it, on one side from the United States Bishops' Conference, and on the other side from our own Archbishop Joseph Tobin, but it has their statement concerning the Supreme Court's ruling on same-sex marriage from this past week. And I'd like to get this into your hands as soon as possible because I know without a doubt it is a discussion that is taking place not just on social media, but in people's homes, workplaces, and in our own community. So I ask you to please take this and read it. They're both well written, and I think they explain very clearly the stance that we have as Roman Catholics. Of course, we believe that the courts got it wrong, which is really, in a certain sense, it is a very, very big deal, but in another sense, our country is 250 years old. Humanity has existed for thousands of years. The Bible has been in existence for 4,000 years. So an institution 250 years old got it wrong. It happens. Other civilizations have got it wrong as well. The consequences of getting this wrong, though, however, are often detrimental to society and the world. If you look at the history of the world, societies that embrace this don't end up well. And we see that again and again and again written in the pages of history. The societies who degrade marriage and say that other things are marriage don't normally end up well. So without a doubt, the statements make it very clear that through not just divine revelation in the Bible, but also through natural law, we define marriage as between a man and a woman because a man and a woman bring forth children, which creates the family, which is the building block of society and the world. We hold true to that conviction, while at the same time, and this needs to be very, very clear, at the same time, we are called to love, respect, and honor all people. So although we say that those acts are immoral, we are called to love that person. We've often heard the cliche phrase to hate the sin, but to love the sinner. So although we do not believe that those acts are natural or good, we do love the individual. To make a real brief analogy, I look at a 16-year-old boy and I say, don't have relations with your girlfriend. That's not good for you, it's not good for her, it's not good for society, and so you need to resist that desire. I say to a man or to a woman who's attracted to their coworker and they're married, I say you need to resist the desire to enter into that relationship that's going to be detrimental to that person and to your wife. So with someone with same-sex attraction, I look at them and I say, we ask of you not to act upon that desire because it's not good for you, for them, or for the well-being of society and the world. We are not saying that those people are evil or bad. They're good, wonderful people. I know some very, very good people who choose to live a chaste or celibate life or a single life because they have these desires, and they're wonderful, great people. Thanks be to God. That's a beautiful thing. That's all that the church is saying. We're just saying very clearly that we can't say that marriage is equal to homosexual acts. They're not the same thing. We know this by natural law, and of course we know this by divine law. So I ask of you to read this. I also ask of two things. I ask of you to, and I'll have more information in the bulletin, but I do ask of you to become knowledgeable on what the church actually teaches. There's a very, very, very good 30-minute documentary called The Third Way. Not the first way, not the second way, The Third Way. It's a very, very short documentary. It was made by Father John Hallowell, a priest of our diocese. It's been translated into multiple languages. It's become an international catechetical piece about what we actually teach about people with same-sex attraction. And it's a beautiful, beautiful message. So number one, educate yourself. Number two, I think we also need to, as both of the statements say, we need to recommit ourselves to living our vocations to the full. If you are married, you need to ask yourself the question, am I living my vocation to the full? Am I living a joyful marriage? Am I living a faithful marriage? How am I living what the world is now asking a lot of questions about. It's a great question for all of us. How are we individually living our call to holiness? And then lastly, I just want to throw this out as food for thought for all of you. This decision, like many other social decisions, Roe versus Wade, which made the decision 40 years ago that we would kill our innocent children, decisions that have been made in our country about contraception. These decisions, of course, against church teaching have had dramatic effects upon our society. This social teaching as well, and decision by the Supreme Court, is also going to have huge ramifications on society and the world. I would actually say, this is my prediction, that the effects of this will be in many ways worse than what we've already come up against with Roe versus Wade and contraception. And I'd like to point out one small little way for you to reflect upon. I went to public school. I'm a product of public education. In my public education, I knew as a Catholic that abortion was wrong. But in my whole entire time in public education, the topic of abortion probably only came up maybe 5 times. Because you don't talk about abortion when you're a young kid, you only talk about it when you get older, and in health class it only comes up a few times. The topic of artificial birth control and contraception, maybe 3 times. And we talked about sex ed. The decision that was made this past week will change the face of education in America, beginning in preschool and kindergarten. Every book, every resource that talks about family and life will be thrown away and replaced with a teaching that we believe is not only against the Bible, but is also against nature, the natural law. I think we need to ask ourselves as Catholics, what are we going to do for our children? How are we going to raise them and teach them to know the dignity and the beauty of marriage, life, family, and God's call to rebuild a society based on love? We have Catholic schools for a reason. I'm not a product of one, but I'm just saying that if I was a parent, my child would be in a Catholic school, or I would homeschool my child. Because I don't see any other way. I put that out as food for thought. Like I said, I'm a product of public education. I love public education teachers. But this is my prediction. It's going to get pretty ugly in the public sector. I will support public schools for the rest of my life because I coach at a public school. That's where the majority of people are going to go and where we need to be evangelizing. But we have to ask ourselves the question, why do we have Catholic education? Why do people choose to homeschool? And particularly as the road that we're going down, what is that going to look like? And how are we going to educate our children and the future of our church? I think there's some great questions and some great food for thought on that. On a totally different topic, closing this out today. Today is June 28th, which happens to also be my 12th anniversary of priesthood. And every time that I celebrate that anniversary, I always like to recommit myself to my parishioners to what I promised on the day of my ordination. And that was that I would be a man of God, that I would love you as my people. I see myself as your father, I see myself as your husband, that you are my bride, that we are wedded in a beautiful way. And so today I truly do. I recommit myself to you, to leading you in faithfulness, in holiness, in joy. And I ask that you pray for me. On my first day here when I arrived at All Saints, I asked that you would pray that I would become a saint. And I ask of you to continue to pray for me that I be a saint, that God lead me to be the man that He's calling me to be so that I can lead you to be who God is calling you to be. So on this day that I celebrate my ordination, know of my prayers for you, and I ask of you to pray for me, that we continue through God's grace to become who He is calling us to be.